curious, Greg. Like you piqued my interest. James, um, what kind of politician in Alberta would you be? Like, what would you say to these, establishment type? How would you address them and, diplomatically, if you think you could handle something like that?
So you're asking me that question, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think the important thing is that we remember that once they become American citizens, that we dive into the U.S. Constitution and make sure that every citizen fully understands how that works, and then we look at some of the state constitutions, like say, for instance, for Texas, or for my home state of West Virginia, or other states that represent a level of freedom that that seems that it would be more acceptable. I think that's whenever we start to look at, because you're going to have to write a constitution, you're going to have to write a charter, you're going to have to write all of these things. When you establish a new state, just like every other state had to do. During the Civil War, West Virginia wrote theirs. Imagine that. You're breaking away from Virginia and you become a state. In the middle of a civil war. It requires a level of professionalism. It also requires someone with the strength. And I'm not just talking about the physical strength, and I'm not talking about a dictatorial strength, because you don't need that. You need someone with the strength and the ability, but also the civility to be able to sit down and try to unify Alberta into the 51st state of the United States of America. And I can do that. I really believe that I can do that for several reasons. Number one, I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. Number two, I believe that the citizens would respect a out front leader because they very much, all of the citizenry up there that I know demonstrate that American pioneer spirit that truly expanded the Old West and made America, to really go from sea to shining sea. So we're really looking at a whole group of patriots there that would have the ability to fully understand and comprehend that. And then they'll enjoy a couple of things. They'll enjoy a lot of things about the freedom that comes with the Constitution. Now, some will have a hard time to adjust, leaving more of a socialist styled government that provides a lot of things that people don't think about. But I think that once you allow free market to take over, and people that really become free and have the ability to be able to sustain that freedom, I think you'll see that they will warm up to that really quickly. All states had to go through these transitions. Look, let's look at the Oklahoma Territory when they did their transition. Let's look at all of these states that were once territories and not actual states. They had to struggle, and then they had to get used to operating on their own. But I would say that a place like Alberta, within year 3 to 6, would see the transition, and they would flow right into it, just like a river flows into a perfect pocket. And they would find themselves in a position to where then they could take their natural resources and some of the things that they normally don't have control over, they would have control of that. Because, see, then they would fall under Article 10 of the United States Constitution, our Bill of Rights. When you look at Article 10, anything that's not specifically designated in Articles 1 through 9, are handed and delivered to the states. So they would have some freedom to be able to control their own destiny. Like you see these states that are around here, they're able to compete for businesses to come in. And some of the natural resources that are in Alberta would make it extremely attractive to the energy industry and to be able to become a major player in that field. You would see millionaires, people become millionaires because then they retain property ownership, and property ownership that would allow them to be able to negotiate and do things that they normally couldn't be able to do in the situation that they're in right now. You would see people be able to start businesses much more easily, and then have the established offices of Secretary of State. You would have an Attorney General's office. You would have, an auditor's office, a treasurer's office. You would have all of these different supporting agencies inside this state government, and then you would have elected leaders. So imagine that, not appointed, but elected leadership. So that would include your state delegates and your state senators, and that would be based on population. And then you would be able to have at least one U.S. congressman and two U.S. senators to represent the state of Alberta in Washington, D.C. So we're talking a lot of opportunities here, folks. We're talking, I could see a military base. That would be one of the first things that I would lobby for. Would be to put the whole North American Command for the United States Armed Forces in dead smack dab center of Alberta. You would see, billions of dollars that would be flowing in from that, and then you would have, automatic protection, because that's a strategic value place as well. Look how close we can get to go over the North Pole. I mean, look, it won't take us very long to get to the heart of our enemies if we need to do that. So this is a strong position, a strong defense position to have as far as the United States goes as well, and it would make you a strong player in all things. And then not to mention the industries and the sub-industries and all the things that would flow from that. The job creation would be massive. I think you would see an improvement in your roads. You would see an improvement in your bridges. You would see an improvement in your infrastructure. You definitely would see an improvement in your medical care, because then you would allow that free enterprise, and you'd be able to buy insurance, and you'd be able to select your own, your own provider. Whereas, now there's, I've heard good and bad about Canadian healthcare. I've heard good and bad. Okay, it's the same thing with VA healthcare. VA healthcare is a form of socialized medicine. Some of it's good, some of it's not good. The wait times are what's really bad. So if I'm someone sitting there with pancreatic cancer or something that's deadly, that I need something done really quick or I'm going to die, I would much rather be able to go out and shop and look around and, get the money and pay for my own care and services. You understand what I'm saying with that? The other thing is the natural resources. And then don't forget what a great tourism place that would become. And then you would not be burdened with, we wouldn't have to have a passport to travel from Alberta to the lower, to the lower 48. We would have, access to, beautiful vacation opportunities. Tourism is a multi-billion-dollar industry, folks. And I think that, once you open that up, you would see massive amounts of tourism that would be flowing across your border. And then the other thing, we add an added buffer to our border crisis that we have now. No longer would we have to worry about that section of the northern border, where all kinds of, it's just crazy what we're seeing. We watch the southern border, but we all know that there's some bad hombres that are getting into Canada, and they're making their way, across the northern border as well. So we understand as Americans that it would be a difficult transition, but I think as a rock solid governor, someone that wouldn't be afraid to roll up their sleeves, I'd be happy to do that, or at least try to be the governor of Alberta. Thank you very much.